Hello, Pod Smashers of the Internet, and welcome to another episode of... Where Gaming Goes to Grab a Beer.
What was that sound?
Woo!
What was that?
I'm having a good night.
Gracious. Okay. We're your hosts, Penguin and Termite. I'm Penguin.
I am Termite, and we are a weekly video game podcast smashing together ideas that you care about with video games.
That's right, and despite whatever that terrifying sound was that just assaulted your eardrums as it did mine, the idea we are talking about today is we are continuing our series on reviewing the list that Wikipedia has compiled of what are widely considered to be the best video games of all time. We'll explain more about why we go through this list before we get into it. But in the meantime, we are where gaming goes to grab a beer. And so what made that sound?
This is Left Hand Brewing's Milk Stout Nitro, America's Stout. Okay. So because of the nitro is what you heard, was the extra, all of that.
I don't, it must have just, the mic must have picked it up in a weird way because I don't ever remember. Oh, I've had that before. Mm-hmm. And I've never heard it make that sound before. Did you shake it up or something? What's going on?
No, I did sit it here while we did our newscast so that I could get the temperature could raise, and maybe with the increase in temperature, it's like the nitro carbonation, or I know carbonation is not nitro; they're different gases, but maybe the bubbles are a little bit more excited or something with the temperature. I don't know. I don't know science. I just believe in it.
This isn't a science podcast.
I don't know. I have no idea, but that's what I'm drinking tonight. I love this stout, and it came with a 6-pack of random craft beer that we ordered a pack from Vivify Burgers downtown in our area of Fredericksburg, and we ordered a Super Bowl pack that came with 25 wings and a 6-pack of beer together. You just go curbside pickup, and I was still quarantining, and so I didn't want to go into any places and shop for beer. It was an easy solution, and it was a random pack. And in there was the stout, which does not go well with wings or the Super Bowl. So I saved it for tonight. So there's some things on the can, I guess. Super smooth with soft roastiness and mocha note. Mocha is like coffee chocolate, for those who may not know what mocha is. From our hand to yours. And Left Hand. Where is Left Hand? I should know this.
Colorado.
Okay, there you go.
Yes.
Sweet.
I only know this because Left Hand has
Longmont, Colorado.
Yes, Left Hand has Good Juju, which is one of my favorite like summer beers. It's like a beer made with ginger, and I love it. It's delicious. Yes. Supposedly they have like a Wicked Juju, which is like a stout version of that, and I want it.
What?
But, side note, because I think stout and ginger would also be a great, delicious combination. Anyways. Yeah, I am drinking another one of my Hardywood Raspberry Stouts. I had this last week, I believe. I also got different beer for the Super Bowl, though, because I did not want to drink this with our Super Bowl food. I was like, no. So this was saved for the podcast, and I got some cheaper, blonde ale or something like that for the Super Bowl. But yeah, this is the Hardywood Raspberry Stout. It's really good. It's made with real raspberries. I read the can last week, so I won't read it again, but it's definitely it definitely tastes like real raspberries, which is awesome. So it definitely doesn't taste like an artificial raspberry flavor, which is a huge point in its favor. It's definitely got that sort of stout maltiness, creaminess, thickness with a bit that kind of chocolate sweet undertones as well. But it's also counteracted with like a sort of sour, that raspberry kind of comes across as like a sour note. So if you've ever wondered what like a sour mixed with a stout would taste like, you could do worse than Hardywood's Raspberry Stout. So check it out.
Yes,
anyways,
sounds amazing.
Yeah, it's really good. So
I learned something about beer this week. Speaking of stouts,
drop it on me.
I didn't know this because I don't like porters. It's kind of a known thing. There's very few porters in the world that I enjoy, but I love stouts. And now I see why that makes absolutely no sense, because the popularity of porter was significant, and it became the first beer style to be brewed across the world, and production had commenced in Ireland, North America, Sweden, and Russia. That's where it came from, right? The name stout, used for a dark beer, is believed to have come from because strong porters were marketed under such names as extra porter, double porter, and stout porter. I had no idea. So yeah, of course I just read that from Wikipedia, but I wanted to what is the difference between a port and a stout? I need to know this because I don't like ports, but I like stouts. Come to find out, a stout is just a darker, more in your face, more version. Extreme porter.
So it's kind of like all stouts are porters, but not all porters are stouts. So yeah.
Yeah.
I can see that.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
You can still enjoy the difference between them knowing that if you're getting something that's not the name stout is synonymous with a certain style at this point. So if you're ordering something that's labeled as a porter, it's probably not going to be what you want it to be. But that makes sense. I didn't know that difference either. I do know that like they all come from both porters and stouts come as a result of like the darkness of the water. Like I'm pretty sure it originated in like the German like Rhine, I think, and the water there is really dark. So that's how it kind of gets its dark coloration. But yeah, I don't know. I'm no beer expert. I just vaguely remember learning that at some point.
It says on Wikipedia that it's dark because of using brown malt, and it came out of London, England.
Oh, okay. Well, London, England also has dark, dingy water. Gotcha. Cool. All right. Well, then this is a opportunity for us to kind of fill with whatever we want before we start to jump into our segments. So is there any topic of any note that you wanted to bring up? Anything you wanted to banter and rant about?
Well, we both just watched the Super Bowl, and it was the first one, and probably
I only watched
the only
about half of it. I got kind of bored, honestly, and decided to play Remnant with Justin instead.
Nice. It was the first Super Bowl in the pandemic world, and I hope the only one. So things were very different. And you alluded to earlier that there were some problematic things done because it was digital, and I was curious what you meant.
No. This was in our newscast episode, which would be 2 weeks away from anyone listening to this. But no, what was problematic was they didn't go digital enough in the sense that they had lots of...
okay. I got you.
They had, there were still lots of people there. And though they had spaced out some of the seats with like cardboard cutouts and stuff like that, there were still a lot of people there. And as I saw people commenting on Facebook, the illusion of any kind of safety was ruined when they actually like would zoom in on people. And the people that were there were all just like going ham and crazy and not wearing masks and stuff. And it was like, so... Yeah, whatever. For whatever it's worth, we'll see. I do genuinely hope that... I know that they did make an effort to like sell tickets to people, like offer tickets to people who were vaccinated. So they had about like 7,000 people there who were vaccinated, but that's still only a small number. Like that's still... Not everyone there was vaccinated, which just means that it was still a potential super spreader event, which is
and
like...
then I heard afterward, Tampa won. No surprise. The Tom Brady always wins.
He's got the spice melange.
The town went nuts, apparently, and there was tons of pictures and social media footage of all of Tampa Bay just, like, partying in the streets, and, like, no masks were worn, bars were overflowing, and there was, like, clubs, like, stuff, celebratory things were just happening everywhere.
It's Florida. So, they have a government that is run by people who have not taken this seriously from the get-go. So, whatever. No offense, Florida. No offense to residents of Florida who may be listening to this, but your government kind of sucks as far as I'm concerned.
Jeez, you heard it here first, folks.
I'm going to have a bunch of angry Floridians knocking on my door being like, how dare you? No, we're not that popular, I wish. Maybe in like 10 years, if we blow up between now and then like I'll have people being like, how come you trash talked Florida decade ago? So, it was an angry time in my life. All right, well, what were your thoughts on the Super Bowl as a whole? Like, I thought the game was really boring, so I crapped out, but I saw a lot of people commenting negatively on the halftime show, and I thought the halftime show was super classy. I thought The Weeknd did a great job. So
yeah,
I saw someone comment that he's like a budget Bruno Mars, and I'm like, so what? Like, Bruno Mars is great, and The Weeknd, I don't care if he's I like the budget version of Little Debbie cakes, like Food Lion's like budget version of those. They're so delicious and taste like Little Debbie cakes. Like,
right? So only beer and wine is good.
Yeah, exactly. So what's the problem with budget Bruno Mars? It still gives you that same kind of vibe, and he was great. He's different enough from Bruno Mars. I liked him.
I love the memes that are going around of him like staggering through the light hallway, and like everyone's equating it to all the millions of things that we do in worlds that, like, especially in the gaming industry, it's like, this is me looking for a save state in the late game JRPG from the 90s. I'm like, yes, this is exactly what I was doing.
Yeah, that was a part of the show that could only have been done during a pandemic, because can you imagine how angry you'd be if you went to the Super Bowl and were one of the people that were allowed on the field to watch the halftime show, only to have the artist go like into a box for a third of the show? I'd be like, come on. So yes, that was something that could only have been done during a pandemic when everybody's watching on a screen anyways.
The other thing that could only have been done during a pandemic is they used the entire field for dance choreography instead of allowing like a pseudo concert to spring up and have all the fans rush the stage. at the in the field. Now they were able to like just let The Weeknd and his dance entourage, I guess, like take full reign of the field, and I thought that was really cool. They spread out and like danced and did their thing, and it was really, I don't know, that was good. I loved it. The halftime show was great.
It was super classy. Like, I mean, the whole Super Bowl halftime show thing can get fairly controversial regarding the, sometimes less than family friendly nature of the performances.
Yep.
So I like how, I mean, it just wasn't controversial in that regard at all. It was just, I mean, in fact, I don't even think I saw a single female dancer. I think it was all a bunch of dudes, which could be controversial in some crowds. But at the end of the day, I was like, yeah, it was super classy. No one showed any gratuitous skin and no one did anything particularly vulgar. It was just a classy concert. I liked it. I was into it.
Yep.
So cool.
I agree. The game
any
itself
commercials?
Was the commercial. Oh my gosh, there was a couple of commercials. Man, I should have like took notes because now that I'm on the spot, I can't remember any of them.
Yeah.
I do remember one. There was one commercial, and I don't remember. There's two highlights. The first one, because this was the best one by far, was for a company I'd never heard of called Fiverr. Fiverr.
Oh, yeah,
I don't know who they are or what they do. I've never looked them up. I still have no clue. But their entire commercial was them saying their service or something was like, and they referenced the entire Four Seasons landscaping debacle, and to the point where at the very end, there's someone who's clearly looking for a lobby in a dress, like a pants suit, going, "Is this the lobby?" And like in the middle of a warehouse around landscaping stuff happening, completely making fun of Giuliani and their debacle with trying to hold a press conference.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, and mixing up the hotel with the landscape. So I laughed so hard. I missed the company. I didn't know what was happening. It was fantastic, and I'm really glad that got like front and center stage across America during the Super Bowl. My other favorite commercial, and I think you would appreciate this one because of our podcast, but there was an entire commercial that was all about whenever you ask someone to get a beer. And it showed all of these different scenarios of people like, hey, let's get a beer. And it's someone who's struggling with something or somebody celebrating something. And at the end of it, I had to have been a Bud Light commercial. I don't know any other beer that maybe Miller or Michelob Ultra. I'm not sure which one. But they talked about like all the different scenarios. It's never about the beer. It's always about the connection between people. And during a pandemic when we haven't had that, I was like, this is so heartwarming and so cool to see. Like, no, not at all. Not even close. But it was like, it still was emotional. It still like hit you in the feels.
The one that made me cry was the Paralympic athlete or whatever. The one with where they like told her story or whatever, and the swimmer with the.
No, I missed that.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
both me and my wife were just like, I'm not crying, you're crying. Get something in my eye.
Yep.
That was a good one. All right.
Did you see Amanda Gorman's speech? Before the coin flip.
I did see that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I also saw the awful national anthem. Oh, the national anthem was so bad this year.
I didn't say it was bad. It's just boring.
Yeah, it was bad.
It just wasn't good.
Yeah,
it's like neutral. It's like
my statement to my wife was like, I wonder if the creators of the national anthem ever anticipated that people would just sing it and then just add whatever notes they wanted. Just because that's what everyone does. Everyone's like, for the land of the free. It's like literally how the national anthem goes every year, all the time. So, all right, cool. Let's move on then to our next segment because singing the national anthem badly is not our favorite thing, but
doing this podcast is our favorite thing.
Doing this podcast is our favorite thing.
Favorite things.
We're not even a football podcast, and we apparently talk about the Super Bowl too much.
Well, it's a big deal. It's a
cultural touchstone.
Yeah. Thank you.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
All right.
That's it.
All right. Favorite things is a chance for us to share with you the thing that we were excited about, the thing that we are digging, the thing that we want to share with you in hopes that you might find your next favorite thing. So, Termite, do you have a favorite thing for the week?
I do, and it's gonna be the antithesis of what I said a couple of episodes ago. So bear with me. I had to take a sip. Okay. So a couple of weeks ago on the podcast, I mentioned maybe I'll have a new outlook on trophies and I'll try more games and I won't care so much about them. And I might jump around a little more and like experience and dab my toe into other genres and things and like have this kind of no frills approach to trophies, caring a little less. I have gone in the opposite direction.
You didn't even try. You did not even try. You were like, I'm going to finish up the trophies that I've got.
I did try.
And then
Destruction All-Stars is proof. Destruction All-Stars is 100% proof because I had no intention I looked at the trophy list before I started. I was like, that's not happening, but I want to play it anyway.
That's
and
not
I did.
any different from
sucked.
like a Resident Evil game that you.
But there's a difference in like I want to play this game. I'm excited about it, and looking at the trophy list and jumping in, knowing I'm going to get them, and like all that. I this time I scanned a guide, and I was like, not going to happen. But I still played it anyway. I had no reason to play Destruction All-Stars. It's not an IP that is beloved. It's not anything that I've ever played before. It's a completely new IP.
You could say the same thing
5.
about Fall Guys.
That's true, actually. Yeah, but Fall Guys,
saying, you haven't
I played
tried.
more.
You haven't said, until you play Bloodborne, you haven't tried.
I'm not touching Bloodborne until there's a 60 frames per second patch.
Sekiro,
I can't do
then.
this. Yeah, it's too hard.
It's not too hard.
Okay, my favorite thing. So I went to the opposite direction, and this is what happened. And this is my favorite thing. I had some extra travel money because whenever I travel for work, they pay you mileage for your car, which you don't. It technically does meet the price demands of wear and tear in your car and the gas. That's what it's for. But in the moment, I have this extra little bump in cash, and I'm like, I have been tracking the price of PlayStation Vitas for like 4 years. I've wanted a PlayStation Vita for years, and I constantly look. I find myself at least once a week perusing the eBay list for Vitas. I was like, why haven't I bought one yet? The prices are going up. They stopped making them. They announced a few months ago that they've canned the production of them forever, and so that only means what's left in the out there in the world is all that's left. So that's it. Like, supply is done. So supply is dwindling. Demand is the same, if not rising more. So I jumped on that. I bought one. It's coming from Japan. It's on the way. There's a tracking number, and I can't wait. So with that, I was like, I know there's a lot of games that came out on the PlayStation Plus, free games over the years that I have been claiming every single month that are cross-buy. Not only have PlayStation Vita titles been on the PlayStation Plus, but some PS3 and PS4 titles that are cross-buy are also on the PlayStation Plus free games that if you claim them during that month, you get them for whatever platforms that are available on cross-buy. So I have 80 plus games for the Vita ready to go. So in typical Termite fashion, I Googled every single one of their trophy guides, and I put together a spreadsheet, and I attached to them the trophy difficulty and the amount of time it takes to platinum on a spreadsheet. So I have a full spreadsheet of 80 some titles with, I can sort them if I want to, by trophy difficulty and length of time. And you can bet your tail that I've got a couple in my sights that are 1 to 2 hours platinum. Done. And I currently own them, and I don't have to spend $1 on them, and I can't wait to get this console in my hand to get more trophies. And it's on the go, so I don't have to be tied to a screen. I can play anywhere and anytime I want, and I'm so happy. I have some more travel lined up, and I don't have to pack my PlayStation 5 with me to travel. I can just throw my Vita in the bag and move on, and I cannot wait. So that's my favorite thing, is the anticipation of the PlayStation Vita. Yes, I'm sure. I lost you at spreadsheet.
You lost me way before spreadsheet. All right, my favorite thing is, man, there's been a lot. It's been a pretty good weekend for me leading up to today. But if I had to pick one thing, it would probably be oh gosh, my wife and I did so much cooking on Sunday. So like my wife got a little adventurous with the grocery shopping and decided that she wanted to try a beef and broccoli recipe. So we made that for lunch on Sunday, and it was awesome. She did so good, and the meat cut she got was perfect for it. It was like a sirloin steak, and I cut it. Is this
like Chinese food, beef and broccoli?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it
sauce?
was like yep. Exactly what she was trying to recreate, and she nailed it. So that was good. And then simultaneously that day, we made ham sliders for the Super Bowl, and I made my buffalo dip. Yes. And my buffalo dip is famous. I'm just gonna say, I probably like it more than like any of my actual friends do. But yeah, it's good.
I'm up
people
there with
seem
you.
to like
I like it. I asked to make the buffalo dip, and I was voted out by my family. So we did not get buffalo dip, but I wanted it because of you.
So thank you. So I did tweak the recipe a little bit, and that was just because we had some leftover Munster cheese from like burgers that we made. So I threw some Munster cheese slices on there, and it just buffed up the flavor, which is great because I made it a little bit weaker spicy wise, because it was just me and my wife eating it, and she doesn't love spicy food. So yeah, I think I did pretty good with the buffalo dip this year. So I'm just gonna say all the food that I made on Sunday was my favorite thing. So ham sliders, beef and broccoli, buffalo dip, all fantastic, and just made Sunday an awesome day. Even though we spent so much of the day cooking stuff, preparing food, just like for the Super Bowl and stuff, it was still a really fun day of just sort of like family hanging out and eating food. So if you want any of those recipes, you can reach out to me and I will give them to you. And since we are doing one big DLC for our topic today, we are skipping DLC today, so we can go ahead and you can be told by Termite where, if you want me to share my recipes with you, where can you reach out to me so that I can give those to you?
The first place to start is 80bitpodsmash.com. That's our landing website with links to all of our podcast platforms and social media platforms. We are on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We are on Reddit, and we have a Discord server. The link to that Discord server is also in our show notes. I don't have enough character length to put all of our socials in every single post, but Discord makes it because we want you guys to jump into Discord and jump in and interact with our community, talk to us live, ask us questions, interact with all of our folks. We have a blast. I love our Discord server. I love getting chimed notifications whenever conversations strike up. So please go do that. And if you are more interested in our content and the things that we do, you can also find our YouTube link at 80bitpodsmash.com, where we have all of our videos on demand. That's our live show every single Monday and our gameplay streams every Wednesday. Both of those shows are also live on twitch.tv/80bitpodsmash, and they are 8 p.m. Eastern, Monday and Wednesday. Monday's the news show. Wednesday's our gameplay live stream, and jump in a chat and talk to our communities there as well. So we're everywhere. And make sure you subscribe to us. Hit the bells and the links and the clicks and the dongles and the thumbs ups and all the things. Make sure that you're completely aware of what we're doing, because sometimes I buy random copies of Resident Evil 4 and I want to talk about it. And so I might go live and do that. But you never know because you aren't subscribed. So pull the car over, hit the subscribe button, and then go back on your merry way.
And then continue driving safely.
Yes.
Nice. All right. Well, great. We're 23 minutes into the show, so let's go ahead and jump into our topic then. We are discussing Wikipedia's list of games considered the best. Why did we choose this list to talk about? Well, let's be honest, we do rely on Wikipedia quite a bit, but in this case, we actually looked into how they created this list, and this list was compiled by a list of a bunch of different editorials over the years, and no entry was put on this list if it did not show up on at least 6 different editorial lists of best video games of all time. So, yeah, fairly robust way of determining, and so we are going to discuss whether we think we agree with this. This is not our list. This is not our list of best video games of all time, so there are going to be entries on here that we have not played, that we are not familiar with, and that we question whether they should be on there. So if you want to vehemently defend any given title, then Termite just gave you a list of ways you can vehemently defend those titles. So, anything else about the methodology here? Or?
If we finish a year and we don't mention your favorite video game from that year, we're not going to add our own games to this list.
No.
We're just going through the list that's already published. We're not trying to make our own list, and we're not trying to kick things off the list. So the list is what it is. We're just analyzing it.
Yep, this is part 5 of a series that started back in the spring for us. And Termite or Penguin foolishly thought that this would be 1 or 2 episode podcast, but because we like to give a little bit about each game we talk about if we can. We do, and so we are starting in the year 2002. After doing this for 5 episodes, we slowed down a lot in the 90s and the early 2000s, but hopefully we can pick up the pace and get through a couple more years tonight. I don't think we will finish up to 2017 when the list ends. So,
no.
So we'll get as far as we can, and the next few years are a little bit smaller than the ones we've been doing so far, so hopefully we'll be able to get through a few. So, all right, then let's jump in. The last game we talked about in 2001 was Super Smash Bros. Melee, which was great and incredible. So the next one, you can follow along with this list, by the way, if you're not driving. Just type in Wikipedia best video games list. It will probably be the first there. So anyways, the first game we were talking about tonight, in 2002, is Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind.
Wow, what a title. So the Elder Scrolls, obviously we know Oblivion, Skyrim, and we know Elder Scrolls 6 is on the way. Of course, this game is on the list. One thing I wanted to note before we jump into everything, 2002 is right in the middle of the PlayStation 2, GameCube, Xbox generation. Those consoles had come out in 2001, so that's where we are in the grand scheme of the video game industry. But Elder Scrolls 3 is a PC game in that space because the Xbox port came later, but first was PC. Bethesda Softworks, this is the grandfather to anything you've played, Fallout 3, Fallout 4. They use the same engine. They've just been reworking it and improving it ever since. In fact, the latest game, Fallout 76, still uses the same engine that was originally developed in Morrowind to its detriment or favor, depending on how you look at it. But that's how monumental Morrowind was and how it set an entirely new direction for what action role-playing RPGs could look like. amazing. And no wonder it's on this title, or it's on this list.
Yeah, it definitely, again, either suffers or, depending on your perspective, either suffers or benefits from the RPG design at the time, which is doesn't hold your hand, doesn't give you a bunch of waypoints, doesn't give you a checklist to complete. It just forces you to explore the world. And some people love it, some people hate it for that reason, but it is definitely of a different kind of breed of RPG. But yeah, it's the first Elder Scrolls game on this list and would definitely portend what would come after. So cool, awesome. Anything else you want to add to that? Or...
I hated it when I first played it.
I never played it. I only saw other people. I've only ever seen other people play it. Cool. All right. Next is a great game that we both have played and love. Grand Theft Auto Vice City by Rockstar for the PlayStation 2.
The big follow-on from...
No, it's not the first.
Grand Theft Auto 3 would be the first one. Vice City was kind of the sequel, but yet you clearly could see it used the exact same engine and most of the assets from Grand Theft Auto 3, except this was set in the 80s with new characters and new dialogues and new missions entirely. But fantastic follow-on sequel to Grand Theft Auto.
Is it supposed? It's supposed to be like Miami, right? Like that's the sort of the city that it's trying to kind of
like Miami Vice.
Off of. Yep.
Yeah, I need to go back and play it now because when the game came out, I didn't have a fondness for the 80s much. I kind of was like turned off by the archaic technology and like the over synthesized music and feel. But now I'm obsessed. It's so. I need to go back.
I would just drive around in that game and listen to the talk radio that they had on there because it was really, really funny, really well written stuff. So yeah, I would either like glitch my way into the airport and get a plane and then just fly around listening to it, or I would just drive around listening to it. It was great, good fun. I also remember, I mean, I didn't play much of Vice City the way you're supposed to play it, like the missions and stuff like that. I just remember getting cheat codes and like dropping tanks in the middle of the street, or getting unlimited Molotov cocktails was my favorite because I would go on an Inferno spree. That was always fun. A little bit of my little psychotic penguin coming out of a young age. So cool.
Apparently, the story is why it's on this list because the story is much more tighter and more personal than it was in Grand Theft Auto 3. And I also didn't know that Vice City came out almost a year later, and they were like back to back. Tight. So you could tell they were using the same assets and engine and such. But Vice City's voice acting and story is why it's on this list.
Cool. All right, and moving along. Next is another great, so we're already off to a great start, 2002. Kingdom Hearts, the first team up between by Squaresoft at the time. Yeah, they weren't Square Enix yet. So the first time Squaresoft would team up with Disney to create Kingdom Hearts, probably one of the best actual Disney games of all time as well. So
yes. Oh, it's so good. Lots of original characters, an entirely original story, but featured Final Fantasy characters. You're like, what? And Disney characters. What is going on? And you travel between worlds, and so it had this meaningful story about connection. So a whole new way of expressing like an action role-playing game, because it's not turn-based. You actually like swipe, hack and slash, but you develop characters and like slot abilities and all these things. And it had this whole like Star Fox-esque minigame in it. Definitely groundbreaking, and the voice acting was like, I don't know when Final Fantasy X had come out. I think we talked about that on this list. Final Fantasy X was 2001, the year previous, but it was like the next step in the evolution of what a big RPG from Squaresoft could look like on the PlayStation 2. Music was great. Of course, you source all of the content from Disney, and you have all this awesome music mixed with characters you're familiar with that are all like you're reliving the stories from the movies, and it was just so fun, so good. No wonder it's on this list.
Yeah, I agree with its standing power. I've never played a Kingdom Hearts game. I really want to. It's kind of on my backlog of games I would like to get a hold of. Not even dabbled? Nope, I've seen others play it though. I've watched. If actually that turned me off as a kid because I was like, what? At first I was turned off. I was all up Final Fantasy VII's butt in 2002, so I was like, oh, it doesn't have turn-based combat. How lame. And then also, it's Goofy and Daffy Duck are your partners. That's also so lame. So I was a kind of a punk kid in 2002. So, but now I'm like, oh yeah, I missed out on what is widely considered one of the best franchises in video gaming. So I feel like a tool. So I definitely do want to go back and play them. It stinks because
they did not age well. Like going back and playing the HD remakes and stuff, like they're pretty because they sharpened all the visuals, but they control in how they feel, and the exploration, the platforming is not.
That's unfortunate.
It's not up to snuff. And it's extremely jarring and very
hopefully
difficult to get back into.
Hopefully they'll Final Fantasy VII remake it. Kingdom Hearts remake.
Yes. Oh, that would be amazing.
Same battle system. Yeah, it'd be awesome. Cool. All right, this next game we can both talk about because we both love it very, very much as a entry in probably both of our shared, one of our favorite franchises, if not our shared favorite franchise, Legend of Zelda Wind Waker.
Yes.
Did this game come out in the fall or the summer? I don't remember because I feel like it came out.
March,
I always
24th.
March. Okay, yeah, perfect. Because this game always makes me think of summer. Like I always think this is
weirdly
like the quintessential summer game for me.
This game came out in Japan in December of 2002.
Oh yeah.
So it actually came out in America in March 2003.
Oh, okay.
So it's on this list as a 2002 game, but in America, for us, we didn't experience it until 2003. Yeah. So that's weird. But it was a December game in Japan, so all of the footage, all the hype, all the release content, all the reviews, everything else was just coming out in December as we Americans were waiting 3 months for all of this.
It's so good. So we don't need to go too eloquent into this because we talk about this game a lot in our Zelda episode that was one of our earliest. It was our very first franchise deep dive, I believe. So anyways, but this game revolutionized video game visuals, I think, at the time because everything was trying to go for as realistic as games could render at the time. And this game said, no, forget that, because when you look back on those games, they don't age well at all. I mean, I was just looking at the screenshots of Vice City, which I thought was, if you're looking at games that came out that year, Vice City, I'd be like, oh, this is clearly the peak of video game fidelity, right? No, it looks awful.
No,
whereas
it looks awful. Yeah.
Wind Waker, I pop it into even a GameCube can render it, and it looks fine. Like it looks what it is, and what it was highly stylized cartoon cell shading is what they called it. Nintendo called it at the time, and I mean, aside from the visuals, it's still a solid Zelda game. Again, as a 12-year-old in 2002, I was a little disappointed because I wanted what would eventually be Twilight Princess from a Zelda game. But because I wanted the adult Link, I wanted to be a cool grown-up person, and so I wanted my Link to be a cool grown-up person as well. Going back now, I'm like, oh my gosh, the childhood magic of being Kid Link again for an entire game and sailing across the high seas and all that stuff was, Wind Waker, incredible.
Yeah, the pre-GameCube console footage had this awesome tech demo of Link fighting Ganondorf, and it looked immaculate in this really cool, realistic-ish art style. Like you said, it would come later in Twilight Princess and kind of Smash Bros. Melee art style.
Yep.
And so when Wind Waker was like finally officially revealed and everyone saw it was a cartoon, there was a major backlash.
It was, yeah.
I was taken aback, but I wasn't completely turned off, so I had to have this title when it came out because I'm a major Zelda fan. And then I immediately fell into this game and loved it just as much as Ocarina of Time when I was playing it.
Yeah, I definitely, even though I was a little turned off at first, like, it didn't sway me. I still was going to get this game and going to play it, and inevitably I was going to love it, and I did. It was so good.
Yes. And the biggest thing about this game was how emotion was conveyed through the characters and their animations, and we still see that today. Like the detail that we have today and how to animate characters' visuals so that you can relate as a player to the emotions that are happening in a non-dialogue way. Like we talk about how communication is very low percentage being actual nonverbal, right? So Wind Waker revolutionized that in the gaming space with cartoons. And who would have thought? And it was appealing to all audiences. Yeah, it was great. And it really, in many ways, it laid the foundation for what Breath of the Wild would become. It was much, much more open, less linear than its contemporaries. And then also even the visual style, the idea of like playing a painting, kind of what Wind Waker pioneered, which would eventually become Breath of the Wild. So, cool. Awesome. Another heavy-hitting, hard-hitter game by Nintendo coming up next. Metroid Prime, OG for the GameCube. Oh my gosh. This is the only Metroid game I've ever played, other than like dabbling, of course, with Super Metroid, the podcast with you. This is the only Metroid game I've actually played. And I was introduced to Samus from Smash Bros. Melee a year before. So you are so young. I was in the camp that when Metroid Prime was first showed off and it was a first-person game, I was like, what? This is not Metroid. Super Metroid was the game that defined who Samus was. And I'm young because there are some folks who had the original Metroid on the Nintendo and Metroid 2 on the Game Boy defined who Samus was. But for me, it was Super Metroid, a third-person platforming game that is coined today as the Metroidvania genre, now being represented as a first-person shooter on the GameCube in a sort of realistic, gritty, darker visual style, I was taken aback and kind of turned off. It's like, how is this going to work? It's a first, what? How do you do this? And then I played it. And man, I got this game for Christmas, and this is one of the most fond Christmas memories I have, period, of gaming, was Metroid Prime.
Yeah. I admittedly got stuck in Metroid Prime and couldn't figure out how to continue, so I never finished it, and I was very fond of what I played, but also it's one of those games that has been embedded in my mind as like, I never finished this game and probably never will unless they like remaster it and re-release it. But I want to. I genuinely was fond of what I played of this game, but my poor 12-year-old brain could not. There was no internet for me to go to and be like, how do I get past this area? Mm-hmm. So I just gave up.
Well, if you played Star Wars Fallen Order or Jedi Fallen Order, you'll know that the map system is compared to Metroid Prime. So you at 12 years old trying to navigate a very deep, convoluted map is no joke. It
that
actually
has specific roadblocks that you're not supposed to come to till later. But again, the mind of a 12-year-old doesn't necessarily make that connection immediately. So maybe other 12-year-olds, probably other 12-year-olds are smarter out there than I was. But I couldn't handle it, so I just gave up.
And the whole point of us going through this list is kind of looking at a snapshot in history of what these games defined at that time. And so that's why I talked about Wind Waker and emotions. Metroid Prime defined video game atmosphere. Mixing you're by yourself alone on this planet, and each area has this amazing music and orchestra that kicks in, and it just sets the tone of like, you are alone, you're kind of scared, but you're powerful, you have a little confidence, and you're exploring and trying to figure out this mystery of what happened here on this planet and how to get off of it, and it's awesome. So that kind of atmospheric storytelling, environmental storytelling was definitely being fleshed out here and teased in a unique way at the time.
I didn't realize. I was just looking at the Wikipedia entry for it. I did not realize that Metroid Prime was, at the time, the chronological first game. Yep. And it came based. It took place
origin
before,
story. Yeah.
Yeah. It took place before the Super Metroid and other Metroid games. All right, cool. Moving along then, almost done with 2002 already. Huzzah! Soul Calibur 2. Originally released in the arcade, it looks like, but I know it would have ports for, this was the one that would have ports for the all the major consoles, right? PS2, Xbox, PlayStation, yes, and GameCube.
Dreamcast.
And was this the one with
No, there's no Dreamcast port. But this is the one that had the three platforms, three different unique characters.
Heihachi from Tekken in the PlayStation 2, Link from Zelda on the GameCube, and Spawn from the comic for Xbox. Oh, interesting. I did not know this. Cloud Strife from Final Fantasy VII was originally intended to fill Heihachi's spot, but the licensing deal fell through at the last minute. Oh, there's an alternate universe out there where you could have played as Cloud.
Oh my gosh. Man. I would have lost it.
Crazy. Yeah. So I definitely got the Zelda. So this was fun because I had my neighbor friends and they didn't have a GameCube, but they did have an Xbox and a PlayStation. So I think they got the Xbox version. So I remember playing as Spawn at their house, and then I remember them coming over to my house to play as Link for the GameCube version. And again, the game developers profited the most from that arrangement because we bought multiple copies of the game. But it was published by Namco and developed by Project Soul, who also developed the Soul series, I believe. All the Soul Calibur series, I mean, and Soul Edge, I think was the original origin. But this was the one that like deserves to be on this list because it was just revolutionary for fighting games at the time. And we talked a lot about it.
It was so smooth. Yeah. And it used the environment in unique ways for fighting games. I think like Dead or Alive exists because of this. This is like the grandfather to that.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Very solid fighter. And I wasn't really I was into Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat, and I dabbled in Tekken, but I really fell into Soul Calibur 2. And I haven't actually followed the franchise forward. I only played 2.
Me too. It's exactly. Yeah, and it's one of those, I think it's a little bit slower than fighting games contemporaries, but the characters all feel very, very unique. So no character feels too similar to other characters. They all have their strengths, weaknesses, and combat flows. So yeah, it had that going forward.
So I would use the word dynamic to describe Soul Calibur 2 and its entry onto the 2002 list of best games of all time.
So good. All right, next year, we don't have a ton for this year, thankfully, but 2003, The first in this year would be Beyond Good and Evil. Never played it.
Me neither. And this game apparently is amazing. It has a crazy cult following. And there's this remake or the sequel that's coming through Ubisoft that everyone is clamoring. I think there was a Kickstarter for it at one point, but it moved to like mainstream. I haven't really followed, but I've always, as a retro game collector and aficionado, I'm dying to play this game. I need to find a copy of it that's not exuberantly expensive. And of course, I want it complete with a book. And I want to experience what it is. But it is a Ubisoft title. It uses the Jade engine, which was used for like Rayman and Valiant Hearts and Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon Breakpoint even. So it has roots in modern gaming, and it has this cult following. I don't really know. It's an action-adventure game. So
action-adventure with elements of puzzle solving and stealth-based gameplay. So yeah, I know nothing about it, but apparently it's getting apparently a full HD remastered version of the game is developed in 2011 and made available on the Xbox Live Arcade and PSN. So, yeah, don't have much else to say about it. So if you're a Beyond Good and Evil fan, please tell us why we should play it and love it. So, cool. All right, next is Max Payne 2, The Fall of Max Payne. Max Payne 1 was also on this list when we talked about it last time, didn't we? Yes, we did. It was there in 2001. So, yep, follow-up to Max Payne. I don't know if you played this one and could talk about it, but I certainly can't.
I played through this. I played the crap out of it. This was the beginning of my PC gaming phase. I actually had this on PC and enjoyed all of the fidelity graphics and frame rates and all the cool things that you could do with PC at the time. This was one of the very
15,
first.
Did you enjoy those 15 frames per second?
I did not, because I enjoyed 60.
Oh, good for you.
The console version was probably that. I haven't played it on a console. But when I first saw this on the list, I was like, why? It was a successor to Max Payne 1. I don't think it had as much impact as Max Payne 1, and it was better in all of it's better in the way you would iterate on everything. So the mechanics felt better, the animations were better, the graphics were better, but the storytelling was the same. But I'm looking here at like the reception section on Wikipedia, and under awards was the reception of several industry awards, including Outstanding Art Direction, Editor's Choice Awards, and Game of the Month from Game Informer. So, but it sold poorly. So that's where I'm kind of at a crossroads here. I don't really know what's on the list. It's good. Not as impactful to me as, Max Payne 1, but yeah, there it is.
Yeah, I just briefly, casually reading through some of these reviews. People are praising like the physics engine. So yeah, I don't know. I guess it was probably one that stood out in its time. I don't know if I would, I wonder how people would review it today in hindsight, but whatever, it's on the list. So it's six different publications at least thought it was worth putting on the list. So.
It was good. I'm not downing it at all. It's a fantastic game for the time. I just don't know why it's on the list of best video games of all time. Maybe 2003 is slim pickings.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, it looks like it considering what else is on here, but yeah. All right, cool. Next is Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time, the OG Prince of Persia game.
This is the one they're remaking, right?
This is the one they're remaking. Yep, action adventure with platform and stealth elements. All the rage at this stage. Video game
also a Ubisoft title, also uses the Jade engine.
Yep.
But kind of the precursor to what we see is like Uncharted.
Yep.
This whole action adventure puzzle platformer genre.
And a bit
I can see why this is on the list.
Yeah, a bit of Assassin's Creed. There's a bit of Assassin's Creed DNA in this as well, with sort of stealth elements and the sort of historical fiction action, really, with lots of kind of climbing and that action as well. So I can see it, but I also, at the time, I felt like I was like, this is a fun game, but this isn't a remarkable game, personally. So, I don't know.
But you have not played it either, is that what you said?
No, I did play it. I did play Sands. I played both it and Warrior Within, the follow-up, so.
The sequel. Oh, yeah. Okay. All right.
And like I said, I liked them both, but they weren't, like, my favorites.
What platform did you play them on?
GameCube, because I had to look at the platforms. I was like, I'm pretty sure GameCube, but I'm not 100%. And yeah,
because you didn't have a PS2, right?
I did not. Yeah, so a lot of my PS2 exposure was I had a neighbor friend, the aforementioned neighbor friends. They had a PS2, so I played a lot, like Dark Cloud. I played at their house.
Yes.
And Grand Theft Auto, Vice City. I played at their house, and stuff like that. So I was exposed to a lot of PS2 games, but I did not own any of them because I didn't own a console. So, well, cool. Anything else to say about Prince of Persia?
Nope.
All right. Let's hit Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic.
Arguably the best Star Wars video game ever made.
Arguably, for sure, yeah.
This was my entry into what BioWare RPGs could be. I did not like Morrowind when I first played it on the Xbox.
Morrowind wasn't a BioWare RPG.
I know, but in the same genre. It's like
gotcha.
the whole dialogue choice, like big open world exploration RPG type. Morrowind, of course, being first person, but you could change the camera to third if you wanted. Knights of the Republic was a third person. BioWare RPG, big, giant, sprawling, open Star Wars world where you could make morality choices of dark and light side, and you can develop your character differently. So the dark side of the Force, you could lightning and like force choke, and the light side of the Force, you had like defensive abilities with healing and party support. And it was so deep in all of its ways, and it married perfectly, and that's why it's on the list. The mechanics of the game, physically how you change the way you play, is tied to a morality system that is determined by your dialogue choices and how you interact with the environment, which affects the story. Every single aspect of this game is woven together beautifully, and to tell an amazing story with one of the biggest plot twists that is still stands up to time today, and I'll never spoil it for anyone ever. I will never say it on the podcast. I absolutely love Star Wars Knights of the Republic, and if you have not had a chance to play it, the graphics don't age well.
I was gonna say
it's clunky.
I
man,
tried. It does not hold it for new players. It does not hold up, and I can say this from experience. I tried. I have it. I bought it for like $1.50 on Steam. I've tried. I cannot get into this game because of the outdated design. So I am dying. There's rumors that they're remaking it. And I'm dying for an overhaul or remake of this game because I would love to experience it, but I would love to experience it by today's standards and not 2 decades ago standards. So,
and this was the quintessential BioWare game. This put BioWare on the map as far as
really
mainstream, because BioWare did amazing stuff before Star Wars Knights of the Republic, but PC gamers knew about it in kind of a niche market. But this put them on the map as like, oh, let's take BioWare seriously for this type of game. And their follow-ons were held to that kind of expectation. Knights of the Republic is absolutely incredible. I just wish that it had aged a little better.
With me. I was going to say, you were with a coworker of mine who continues to beat me up because I have not played this game and I could not get into it when I tried at his best. So he's like, you still haven't played KOTOR. I'm like, I've tried. So
look, Mass Effect is only as good as it is because of this game.
Yeah, line me up. I will be there for the remake. Line me up. I'll be first in line. I'll fork it over, but until it's remade, I don't think I'll ever experience it. But all right, cool. Next is WarioWare Incorporated Mega Micro Games! By Nintendo for the Game Boy Advance. I never played it, but I love Wario. He's great.
Well, that's the thing. This is a change in direction for what Wario was before. Wario was a platforming game in all of its entries prior to this. There was Wario World, I think is what it was. Wow, I can't believe I'm drawing a blank. I'm going to Google that, Wario World. I believe that's what it was called. For the GameCube, there was a game called Wario World, but I'm talking about the Virtual Boy. I know my brother's going to be screaming into the speaker, like, it's called this. I can't remember what the franchise is, but it started on Game Boy with Super Mario Land 2, where Wario was a villain, and then there was a third game in that, Super Mario Land 3, where you could play as Wario Land, actually. That's what it was called, Wario Land. And they were always these kind of different than Mario, more aggressive, attack-oriented kind of platforming game where abilities could slam into stuff. Anyway, all of that to say is WarioWare came out, and it was just these random mini-games, like really, really fast, like 10 to 15-second mini-games that did something different. And it was such a turnoff to me, I never played it. I never even pursued it because I was like, I want Wario Land 4 for the Game Boy Advance. I don't want this. So I guess it's on this list because it was a totally new genre. As like, here's a whole bunch of mini games that you have to go through really fast.
Yeah, it looks like it won a lot of awards for like most innovative game, and people talking about it, praise for its portability, being able to play in short bursts, and all that stuff. So whatever.
I mean, I would say it's like the precursor to some cell phone games that we have today.
Yeah. All right, moving along. Let's blast through. 2004 is probably all we have time for, so let's blast through it. It's a pretty big year, but we should be able to get through it before the end of our time here. So, starting with Burnout 3 Takedown, a racing game, but published by EA for the PlayStation 2 and Xbox, and more probably. But Burnout 3, any thoughts?
Developed by Criterion, which is still making things today. A awesome, amazing, innovative take on mixing the racing genre with absolute destruction and freedom to just do and explore what you want. So taking like kind of elements from Grand Theft Auto where you just drive around and hit stuff, but like focusing on the chaos and the carnage and the destruction was super fun. I've only dabbled in this game. I never actually like got into it. And there was actually a remake for modern consoles that came out, I believe, late 2019, but super beloved in the whole Burnout series. Like, this one is the best one. So without that's pretty much all I have to say about it.
Cool, that's fine.
I mean, it's
I'm not a big racing game fan, so I can't really say much.
Analogous to what we would see with like Just Cause, if you ever played Just Cause 3 or 4. It's that, but racing. So
cool.
Yeah.
All right. Dragon Quest VIII. Goodness gracious, there's so many Dragon Quest games.
Yeah, there is.
Square Enix's Dragon Quest series. I think this is the first one that's shown up on the list so far. Mm-hmm. So, any thoughts on Dragon Quest VIII and why it's on this list against other Dragon Quest
transition
games?
From 2 years prior, that was Squaresoft doing Kingdom Hearts, and now it's Square Enix Dragon Quest. Yep. Mm-hmm. But so Dragon Quest was not a Squaresoft thing originally. It was an Enix thing, and it was the rival to Final Fantasy back in the Nintendo days and the Genesis, Super Nintendo days, etc. And Dragon Quest VIII has Akira Toriyama is the artist who did Dragon Ball. It was developed by Level 5, so a lot of big name animators and producers and writers all thrown in here. The writer I'm looking at now, I don't know those. I guess they're the same Dragon Quest writers, but just another big beloved entry in the Dragon Quest.
Yeah, it looks like it might have been one of their first games as a a merged conglomerate. Because that I looked it up because I was curious. That merger happened in 2003, a year prior. So so definitely their first hit. Clearly, if it's on this list, it was definitely their first hit as a combined company. So cool.
Yep.
All right, cool. Next is, of course, Grand Theft Auto, knocking it out in the park like 3 years in a row here with Grand Theft Auto San Andreas.
Mm-hmm.
For
so
the
this was like
2.
set in LA, I guess?
I think so,
LA?
yeah. Yep, playing as an African-American character as well, which was, again, big deal at the time and still is pretty cool. As part of a mark on gaming history.
Yes, I would say it's good for representation, but I say that with trepidation because I don't know if it was like appropriation or not. So I don't
there's also
falsely...
I do wonder again the characterization of that character. I don't know. I never really played it that much, but I don't know how. Like, I mean, he is a criminal, as all Grand Theft Auto characters are. So I don't know how the community would receive that characterization of the character, but nevertheless it's still notable because it was 2004 and it
is at the time it was the perfection of everything Grand Theft Auto had to offer mechanically. It was the best that we'd ever seen graphically, with being able to take all the cars and all the driving mechanics, and they added these RPG elements where you could like work out in the gym and get more muscular, you could run, you could eat too much and get fat, like all these different things affected your character. But it also had like amazing storytelling and voice acting, better than the first 2 games. So this was like the quintessential Grand Theft Auto that set the groundwork for what would become Grand Theft Auto 4 and 5. And Grand Theft Auto has always been in the top selling games of all time, every single year, constantly. And on the PlayStation 2 alone, it sold 12 million units. So it's the highest selling game on the PlayStation 2 over everything else. So
yeah, Grand Theft Auto, I just looked ahead. So spoiler alert. Grand Theft Auto, every Grand Theft Auto game since Grand Theft Auto 3 is on this list. So you'll hear more about them as they come out. But yeah, they continue to push what's possible with the technology at the time and continue to make great sandbox games. So cool. All right, next is one I know you're chomping at the bit to talk about, Half-Life 2. We talked about Half-Life 1, but Half-Life 2 would come out and continue to knock it out of the park by Valve on the PC.
I talk about like every Half-Life entry, at least 1 and 2, that's it. Like each of them fundamentally changed. I know, every single one fundamentally changed the direction of what people would do in the gaming industry entirely for a specific genre, and that's first-person shooting. So the original Half-Life changed the game by telling a story without separating the character from the gameplay. The story events unfolded right in front of you in Half-Life 1 for the first time we've ever seen. Interactable environments, like solving puzzles in a first-person game, was just tweaked and perfected in Half-Life 1, but being able to like see dialogue by like you have to move your mouse to turn towards these characters, and sometimes you would miss it. Like that was revolutionary. Half-Life 2 did the same thing with physics engines and interactable environments. So everybody else just dabbled in playing with physics. Half-Life 2 brought it to a whole nother level. Yeah. There was actually a puzzle where you had to throw a bunch of floating barrels into water, and some of them were chained to the bottom of the ocean or the little lake you were doing, and you had to use buoyancy, which is a physics-based thing, all real-time, rendered with water, with rippling effects and amazing reflections and lighting effects, and you had to push up a ramp to use a speedboat to jump over. but you had to get off the speedboat. So vehicles interacting with the environment. There was another sequence of events that involved a chimney that blew up and it collapsed, and it all happened in real time for the first time. No scripted physics at all. All of the physics engines or physics interactions in this game were all real time and completely just changed the game. That with the story just being super, super good with this like oppressive regime government that was like hurting people and quarantining people and like oppressing them. Like no one had any freedom. And so this idea of like breaking free of this tyrannical, totalitarian, authoritarian government system was just emotionally evoking. It was so good. This game was just absolutely one of the best video games of all time. So, I mean, that's what this list is, right?
Yep.
But if we had to pare this list down even more, Half-Life 2 would be one of the last games knocked off this list.
For sure. Yep. I had never played it, so I don't have much to say. I will say that the gravity gun was pretty cool, though.
I know. Pretty cool.
I know. This era is hit or miss for me in regards to games. I was an early teenager and could not afford half of these games or didn't have the platforms to play them on, but cool. Mm-hmm. All right, Halo 2 is a game that I can talk at great lengths about. Arguably the best Halo. Definitely a controversial opinion there, but I absolutely loved Halo 2. It definitely took it and improved upon what Halo 1 did. It revolutionized the multiplayer space.
Yep.
Dual-wielding weapons, which would eventually fall out of favor in Halo games, I still adored and thought was the greatest addition to the game. And it just told a really great, it upped the stakes on the stories and told a really great story. The fact that it started out on Earth after the events of Halo 1 just completely threw the stakes, blew it out of the water, and made everything just an incredible experience. So Halo 2
is my favorite Halo as well, but definitely set the ground for Xbox Live and consoles existing on the internet space in the same capacity that PCs could, using chat interface like the little headset you plug into your controller and party up with your party and like go play multiple rounds together and never really losing track of your party and like staying together between rounds, and like the leveling system and stats and all the things that you would expect in a modern multiplayer were all revolutionary in the console space at this time. And so yeah, Halo 2 just knocked it out of the park. I remember well into the Xbox 360 era, people still playing Halo 2 backwards compatible. Like this game was incredible. And Halo 3, funnily enough, the story between 2 and 3, 2 got too big for its budget, and like they just had to cut the story, and so there's this crazy cliffhanger ending that gets picked up in 3, but half that story in 3 was supposed to be in 2, but that's aside. So yeah, Halo 2 is a phenomenal game and still my favorite Halo to this day.
Fantastic. Yeah, I agree. Definitely my favorite Halo.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Next is Katamari Damacy. This game published by Namco, developed by Namco as well. I don't know much about this game other than it's weird as crap. And it is supposedly, or not supposedly, it did catch my eye when it showed up on my boy Brandon Sanderson's best video games list. Other than that, I know very little about it. So
I recently acquired a copy of it, so I have it, and I've not really played it. But the concept of the game is like you are rolling over a world and collecting everything you roll over like a giant snowball. And funnily enough, I've thought of this game yesterday. I went on a cleaning rampage, and I was like, for once, my floor and my foot is not Katamari Damacying everything on the floor. So when I sit down, I just have this giant collection of dirt on my foot because it's all clean. And yeah, I guess it's weird. It's quirky. It's very Japanese for what that term means. And it's a puzzle action game that revolves around collecting the world on you as a giant snowball. So you like pick up stadiums and Ferris wheels and cruise ships and cows. Yeah, nuts. Crazy game. You just roll around, pick stuff up. So maybe we should experience this together sometime.
Yeah.
It'd be fun.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It won lots of awards, so it's it is what it is. So yeah, we'll check it out. Katamari Damacy. All right, next is Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater.
Another amazing title. You know me, Metal Gear Solid.
Yep, we all know.
Love it.
Everybody who's a long-time listener knows exactly how much you love this game.
T-Bone got me a copy of this game for Christmas, and it was just one of those amazing Christmas memories of playing this game. All the survival mechanics in this game are revolutionary, like being able to eat food and affect you in different ways, and using the environment around you to approach enemies in unique ways, and kind of the open feel of how to approach encounters approach encounters, being able to like more stealth, less stealth. How you use stealth is different. You get different types of camouflage affect different types of enemy detection systems. It was very deep, and it had the same amazing storytelling that comes with all the Metal Gear Solids, with the codex and the crazy plot twists and the unique bosses. And this was like set in the past, so it was very much a prequel as far as chronology is concerned. You would meet like a young Ocelot. You were Big Boss, which is Snake's kind of genetic father. Yeah, good game, really good game.
Yeah, nice.
Go play
Again, don't have much to say about it. I will note that it was a commercial success, though it did it did sell considerably lower than Metal Gear Solid 2, about half the copies. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So for what it's worth, but critically it was received very, very well. So
yeah, the mechanics and graphics of Metal Gear Solid 3 were definitely better than 2, but I think the story and feel of 2 was better. But 1 is still my favorite.
Nice. All right, next, Rome Total War.
I don't know anything about it. Is it RTS, I guess?
Not
I think it's an RTS. Released for Windows. It's a PC game, I guess, in the vein of like...
Yeah, real-time tactics, turn-based strategy. It's a turn-based strategy, so...
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So maybe like Divinity Original Sin?
Yeah, but with strategy.
With armies instead of characters?
Not an RPG. Yeah, it's still a strategy game, ultimately. So, looking at the screenshots, I know I've seen this game before, but yeah, I don't really know much about it. So I bet you there's RTS fans out there, or maybe not RTS, but there's strategy game fans out there that absolutely love this game and will take us to task on it. So please tell us why Rome Total War deserves to be on this list. But this next game we can talk a lot about, so we will keep it we'll keep it as brief as we can. But we will finish off our episode tonight.
And this game, the release of the next title is when Dan blinks away into existence, and no video game that comes out after this one is in his world until he meets Termite in 2015.
No, that's not fair. There are plenty of these next games that I've played and enjoyed. Don't be too hyperbolic here. World of Warcraft came out at the end of 2004 for the PC by Blizzard Entertainment.
Oh man, did it!
And yes, oh man, did it is the only way to describe it. This game, it's fair to say, definitely rocked the world and changed what the landscape of multiplayer games would be for the next 15
Forever.
Years. Yeah. Yeah, 15, 16
Yep.
years. So, yeah, up till now. I mean, like I mentioned earlier, did I mention it earlier in this podcast, or did I mention it in the news show? I'm not sure. But at some point recently I mentioned the Shadowlands was the fastest selling PC game of all time. The most recent World of Warcraft expansion that came out this year or last year, I should say, was the fastest selling PC game of all time, and started back here in 2004. So yeah, the game still goes strong. Was and is the first MMO on this list. If not, no, EverQuest is also on the list. But yeah,
EverQuest.
So is Ultima. Never mind. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it is. It was the MMO that kind of brought not just MMOs but really multiplayer gaming to the forefront of people's minds in this year. So I know oh gosh, I love this game.
Yep. I mean, I was obsessed with Warcraft 3 and Warcraft 2, so I love the world and the lore. But that aside, the art style, the improving of like animations and graphics in an MMO was way better than anything I'd ever done before. And then the quality of life improvements on the UI and character development, how you get your skills and like guidance in the world, telling you where to go and how the map worked. Like I had played The Matrix Online, I played Asheron's Call 2, I played Dark Age of Camelot, I played EverQuest, and they were trash compared to World of Warcraft because everything hurt so much to do in Final Fantasy. Even Final Fantasy 11 is like so slow, and like progressing required a party online. You couldn't play by yourself. World of Warcraft was so accessible. It was so easy to pair up with random people.
And like it's becomes like anybody who's played World of Warcraft for any length of time will remember how much of a pain vanilla World of Warcraft was, and yet at its time it was still considered the most accessible and casual MMORPG. Yep. And yeah, like I said, completely changed the face of what the expectation for online gaming was. And the expectation was, I mean, World of Warcraft set the standard for being like, you should be able to feel like you've progressed at least a little bit when you get on for even a small amount of time.
Yep.
And that is what it did well, and that is what every online game has been chasing since. So yeah, crazy. But yeah, this comes about at the time when like internet bandwidths were finally people were starting to finally get accessible high-speed internet in a way that allowed them to play this massive game effectively at such a large scale. And yeah, it was a well-timed game in regards to just like what the landscape of the internet looked like at the time. And yeah, there's so much to say about this game. And what attracted me to it in 2004 was I was a big Warcraft 3 fan as well, which I scrolled back up, surprised to see that Warcraft 3 is not on this list. I didn't catch that. Yeah. Yep. But huge Warcraft fan. And then like the idea of being able to play a character and grow that character in a living world was so appealing to me at the time. And I followed that game since its announcement, pre-alpha footage and all that stuff. I was following that game. And then when it came out, I couldn't afford to buy my own copy at first. So I remember playing the first exposure I had to World of Warcraft was playing it at a friend's house. And then I begged and begged and begged my parents to let me get to pay for a subscription for me. And yeah, oh man.
You're crazy. So young. I had my own job. I bought it. I was in the stress test. I had this thing on release night. I went to the midnight release and picked up my copy, and all of my friends jumped online and we played it. We had so many LAN parties.
Yeah, I would have been. Yeah, I would have been around. I would have been 14. Yeah, I would have been 14, which would have put me right before the age when I could really have gotten like a worker's permit or whatever. So yeah, I was just a wee bit too young to be able to afford it myself. But fortunately, my parents were generous enough to pay for a subscription at the time, and I played it. And I got it in February of 2005 is when I started my own World of Warcraft account. But yeah, great. Good fun. Anyways, so we like to spend some time. So we are a little bit over time than usual, but we do like to spend some time talking about overall trends from these 3 years that we talked about. No, we only did 2000. We started in 2002. So 1, 2, 3. Yeah, right. 3 years we talked about. So we like to talk about trends, kind of things that we've noticed happened to like. Yeah, well, what were any overall trends that you noticed about these 3 years of best games of all time?
Lots of action adventure. Like if you look at the genre list just here, because you can see it all in one kind of easy screenshot capture, you see like 2002 is pretty much all action adventure, and then it trickles into like third person shooters, action adventures, and then Grand Theft Auto, and even the first person genre was adapting to the allure of things like Kingdom Hearts, Wind Waker, Metroid Prime in a more meta sense, like being able to tell a story differently. Like we're seeing a shift here in these 3 years to more of what we see today with Ghost of Tsushima, Last of Us Part 2, Uncharted. Like PlayStation's capitalizing on the trend that's kind of across the entire industry here in 2002, 3, and 4. We're seeing the epitome of that in modern gaming with Sony specifically.
Yeah, I mean, this era, we talked about this in our last episode too, but this whole era starting in the early 2000s is really what would template. I mean, the experimentation that was happening in this era is the template for like gaming for the last decade and more. Decade and a half, really, is we would see all of these things are like creating what the modern gaming industry looks like and shaping it at this stage. Kind of transitioning out of the 90s, transitioning out of that arcadey style and really going into games as this artistic medium, games that can tell solid stories, and games that can experiment with mechanics in deeper, more meaningful ways, because console gaming is here and here to stay. And even if that's in question at the time, with PCs being what they were, PC gaming was also capable of doing these same things. So the idea of these big budget blockbuster games being, huge, massive experiences really started here. And yeah, I mean, this is also the dawn of online gaming, about like the tipping point between Halo 2 and World of Warcraft. You have two of the biggest online games of all time that put online gaming on the map in a way that it hadn't been up to that point, because of things like new technologies and high-speed internets, and the consoles themselves or PCs themselves innovating in ways that made online gaming not only fun and enjoyable and stable, but also, relatively speaking, but also profitable for the companies as well. So, yep.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well,
that's it.
That's our show. So if you have thoughts on these 3 years, 2002, 3, and 4, and want to weigh in on Wikipedia's opinions on the best video games list of all time, if you have games that you're like, I can't believe they didn't have that on there, like we have with Warcraft 3, if you have games that you also want to defend and say this game you guys didn't talk about enough and it's on this list for this reason, then please share those thoughts and more with us. Right where Termite will tell you.
80bitpodsmash.com, our landing website with links to all of our social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Reddit. We have our own subreddit for topics and conversations just like this. We also have a Discord server whose link is in all of our show notes, and you can find all of that stuff and more at 80bitpodsmash.com, where our podcast platforms are also highlighted, and we have a YouTube channel that's there as well. So make sure you follow us along on whatever podcast platform of your choice, as well as our YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe so you can be made aware of our comings and goings and our social media stuff. We always post what we're going to do before we do it, so follow us on Twitter at 80bitpodsmash. And then one of the most important new things we started doing is the twitch.tv/80bitpodsmash, where every Monday night at 8 p.m. you can find our newscast, where we run through a week's worth of video game news and we share it with you. And Wednesday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, also we share a video game live gameplay stream. So whatever we're digging for the week, we will fire it up on our capture cards, or we'll fire it natively from a console, or whatever we're going to do, and we will share a game experience with our audience. So please find us at twitch.tv/80bitpodsmash and subscribe to us there.
Nice. Next week, we don't have an episode picked yet, but it will be March 1st, so the dawn of spring. Or maybe not quite, technically, but whatever. It will be March. So we'll be 3 months into the year, or 2 full months behind us into 2021. Crazy. Nevertheless, we will have some conversing to do as to what we want to do about that. We will get to that and put something on the calendar, and we'll see you then.
All right, see you next week.